What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Now, welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. Y'all, the skin today, on the fritz. We're going to ignore it, though. Just act like we don't see it. And hopefully you don't see the dogs in the background either, because that is Bella. That is Bella trying to murder Blue. Y'all, I had to show off the tan lines again this week. And I'm currently under attack on Instagram, but we're going to act like it's not happening because, you know, they're trying to say mother is not a brown skin girl. Clearly she is. All right, y'all, today's case is a very, very interesting one. So I'm not going to waste too much time in the beginning. I'm just going to get right into all of the things because there's a lot to unpack here. On March 4th of 2008, 22-year-old Julian Buchwald takes his 17-year-old girlfriend, Carolyn Watson. I think it's Buchwald. I think I said it wrong. Buchwald, yes. He takes his 17-year-old girlfriend, Carolyn Watson, out to the countryside of Victoria in Australia for what is meant to be a very romantic date. He had planned a picnic for just the two of them in a very beautiful and secluded area. But along the way, things take a horrific turn when the two of them are kidnapped by a well-known satanic cult. See, Julian had spotted roadkill alongside the road and had decided to get out and examine it. And although this sounds strange to me, child, and probably to you too, it was not a strange thing for him. He typically did this. And so he stops the car a little bit ahead of where he had seen the animal laying and walks back the short distance to check it out. Meanwhile, Carolyn just waits for him in the car. Now, as Julian is examining the carcass, he all of a sudden feels this huge hard blow to the back of his head and he blacks out. All of this happens in the rear of the car. So Carolyn is of course facing forward. She does not see it happen. Therefore, she is completely shocked when she is then approached by this masked man who overpowers her, removes her clothes, puts a blindfold on her, hog-ties her, and then throws her into the trunk of the car. He then jumps into the driver's seat and takes off in the car. And for 4 hours, she is riding in the trunk of this car, helpless, fearing that she is about to certainly be assaulted and then very possibly murdered after the fact. Now, a few moments after she feels the car stops, she hears what sounds like digging, as if someone is shoveling dirt, and this only solidifies her fears. Surely it is her grave that is being prepared. She decides to accept her fate and spend the remainder of whatever time she has left praying and hoping that whatever it is that he is about to do to her is over fairly quickly. However, little does she know, Julian, who is also inside the car and stripped of his clothing, has a plan. A little background on the couple. Julian and Carolyn, they met in church. Both were devout Christians, very into their faith, and they had been in a relationship for 2 years up to this point. Now, despite their age gap, her family felt somewhat comfortable with their relationship, which was largely due to the fact that they were both Christians, both virgins, both very into their faith, and had vowed to wait until marriage to have sex. Also, the age of consent in Australia is 17, and so it was very much within the law. The two talked a lot about marriage. They had decided that they definitely wanted to tie the knot. They also had made a lot of future plans together as far as having children, buying a home, which Julian had preferred to do right after Carolyn's 18th birthday. However, Carolyn, still in school, wanted to finish before she had gotten married and had children and all of the things. The decision of when to marry was actually something that had caused a lot of friction within their relationship. So much so that they had actually begun going to counseling with the pastor of their church to kind of work through these issues in hopes of finding a common ground. And when that doesn't work, they actually split up and decide to take a break from the relationship altogether. But the split does not last long. Just a month later, the two of them are back together, both feeling like the issue was not bigger than their love for one another. The two of them wanted to be together forever. And so in the grand scheme of things, the date in which they decide to marry is not more important, or at least not important enough for them to just completely dead the relationship. The two of them take a break from arguing about it and just talking about it altogether. But over time, the tension surrounding the topic begins to resurface. They had actually been at odds around the time of this picnic, and this was Julian's attempt at easing that tension because he really did not want them to get back to a place where they are considering a breakup. Unfortunately, though, things have now gone from bad to worse now that they are in this car kidnapped. On the day of the picnic, Julian was expected to be at home at around 3 p.m. by his mother. The two of them had plans for that afternoon, and when he does not return home, she becomes a bit worried. She is constantly checking the driveway, looking out the window to see if she can see him coming down the road. And when he does not, and she is also unable to reach him, she becomes extremely concerned. One of the times that she checks outside for him, she notices this piece of paper that had seemingly been slipped through the fence. She goes outside to retrieve this paper to see what it is, and apparently it's a little letter that has been left for her and her husband. And it reads, "You bloody couldn't leave us alone, so your son and girl went walkabout. You get Carolyn and Julian back when we finish our business in the area, but only if you behave yourself and don't shit us around again. Tell everyone they're on holiday. Don't you dare talk to the cops again and you'll get your kids back. Shit us again and you'll never see them again because we will the girl to death and then burn her alive." Now, I don't know how they go F her to death and then expect her to still be alive to burn. But let me just keep on going with the note. "And the bloody boy will really enjoy to torture and sacrifice to our God to pay back 180 times the hurt that he did to us when we picked him up. This is your last warning. Do what we say and your kids come back in an alive condition." So Julian's mother, she does not listen to what the note says, okay? She immediately goes down to the police with this note to let them know all of the things that are going on. And of course, ask for their help. Authorities begin an air search for the young couple in the area that they were expected to be picnicking in. And with all of the woods and the trees, it is very hard to see down at the ground level. Investigators, of course, inform Carolyn's parents as well of the note and the fact that the two of them are very possibly in danger. And upon speaking with Carolyn's parents, they find out that 10 days prior, they too had received a letter warning them to stay away or they'd be destroyed and their lives would be ruined. The letter also states that Christians are their enemies. When they'd received this letter, Carolyn's father had actually reported it to the police, but the police believed it to be nothing more than a prank at the time. It didn't really make sense, and they didn't have a clue who could have or would have left such a note. Nothing about it was really clear or, like I said, made sense, so they just wrote it off as some prank and told them not to worry about it, that it was probably nothing. No further action takes place. They compare the two letters, and it is very obviously the same exact handwriting. There is also this same star symbol drawn on each of them, which is the symbol of the ONA, and they are the Order of Nine Angles. The ONA are a black magic satanic cult known for their rituals that oftentimes involve human sacrifice. They are notorious for their anti-Christian stance. One of their whole missions is to completely abolish Christianity. They're also known to have committed some pretty horrific crimes over the decades, and they have their own little calendar, which begins on Hitler's birthday, which says a lot. The ONA was established in the 1960s over in Western England and to date had not been active in Australia. However, police figured that they'd recently expanded and is now ready to make their presence known. And considering the fact that Julian and Carolyn are both virgins, very into their Christian faith, they would be the perfect human sacrifices for this. Now, the investigators also go and speak with the pastor of the church that had counseled the young couple. They also ask for his thoughts on these letters. And what he says is very interesting. All things considered, it is his opinion that the young couple had simply run off to be together. And that the note, although it was very far from the way that either of them spoke and the kind of language that they used, he figures that, of course, it had to be because the purpose of it was to throw investigators and the family off. Child, that's what he had come up with, and he was not about to entertain anything else. That is what he thought had happened, honey, and that is the idea that he was sticking to. The police, on the other hand, were not quite sure at all that that was a possibility. They just didn't think that that was it at all. Despite them not believing that this is likely what happened, they do have to look into it as a possibility. And so they check out the young couple's bank statements. They had not touched any of their money. They had not taken any of their personal belongings other than the food that they had packed for the picnic. None of their valuables were missing from the home. And they even go back and look over their accounts for the past couple weeks to see if any large withdrawals could have been made weeks ago to prepare for this, and none were made. There was nothing suggesting that this was some kind of scheme that either of them had planned. More days passed, and with no leads and still no sign of either of the two, the investigation switches from a search and rescue mission to a search for remains. Their parents are also faced with the difficult task of coming to terms with the fact that they may never see their children again, and if so, certainly not alive. Then, 7 days into the search, everyone is shocked when Carolyn and Julian are discovered in Alpine National Park. And this is nearly 6 hours from where they had been picnicking. The two of them have been spotted by a local farmer after emerging from the woods, severely hydrated, terribly sunburned, famished, and child just all around rough looking, but alive. Each of their families are notified, and then they, of course, are taken to receive medical attention before being interviewed by police. In their individual interviews, they both recount this horrifying ordeal from their own perspectives. And I'm gonna have to give you Caroline's, because old buddy was knocked out. Okay, knocked out cold. After the sounds of their captor digging in the ground had stopped, the trunk had opened and he'd yanked her from within. He drags her a short distance into the woods and throws her into a hole in the ground that he'd been digging. She was right. He was preparing a grave for her. The only thing that she could do at this point was pray. And so she begins to pray really hard, really loudly. Then out of nowhere, her kidnapper leaves her there. She hears him walk away and she doesn't hear anything. It's just complete silence. She waits for him to return because surely she just felt like he was going to get something. But time goes on and he does not return. Seemingly, her prayers have been answered in real time. And she is just like, okay, God, for the quick turnaround time on the prayer line, I see you. But even still, she is unsure that he is completely gone and she does not want to risk it because for all she knows, he is sitting back watching her still. She is, of course, blindfolded, so she can't see. And so for these reasons, she does not immediately get up and try to run off. But just as she is considering doing so, she hears a very familiar voice in the distance. It's Julian in the distance calling her name, looking for her. And she is completely relieved. She calls back for him, and he is able to locate her and free her from her restraints. He, of course, removes the blindfold, too, so she can see. He tells her that he had been able to free himself with a knife that had been left unattended by their attacker. He had also been able to use it to challenge the mystery masked man and escape. They, of course, both feel like it's best for them to get out of that area just in case homie decided to come back. Now, before setting off, they do canvass the area and find a sleeping bag and then some food as well that had been abandoned by their captor. They then spend the rest of the evening traveling on foot as far as they could physically go and sleep inside of the sleeping bag together until the morning. For the 7 days that they could not be located, they had wandered throughout the woods trying to find their way out, but also terrified that they'd run into the person that brought them there or some other kind of trouble. They pray a lot and try to reassure each other that they would be okay, that they would make it out of this alive, and the worst of it is probably behind them now. They just needed to survive these freezing cold nights and make their way home before they run out of food. Luckily, within these 7 days, they also run across a backpack full of food. And oddly, this was one of their own backpacks that they had packed for the picnic. Luckily for them, it has just enough food and water for them to survive until they stumble upon the farmer who had rescued them. Although they don't have many physical details of their captor because, like I said, he was very much a masked man, they tell as much information as they can about him, and a manhunt ensues for this masked crazed maniac. Police are also very convinced still that this is the work of the ONA, which of course is very concerning because if so, they would not be stopping here. This group is obviously a threat to public safety. This time, the search that the police conduct is done on foot, and they are able to retrieve a lot of evidence. They find the couple's clothing, a knife, some rope, a shovel, and of course all of this is good because they now have it to dust for fingerprints and test for DNA. When the results come back, they decide to speak with the couple once more just to see exactly what those 7 days were like, because the only DNA found on any of the things is Julian's. Now they first speak with him, and he claims to have been knocked out cold by the kidnapper, and then claims that he too woke up naked and bound, fearing that he was about to just be ravished sexually by this kidnapper as well. And according to him, he had been knocked out the entire drive. He was not awake for the preparation of the grave, any of the things. Over 6 hours, he was knocked unconscious, which to them sounds a bit far-fetched. That's a really long time to be knocked out cold, sir. But they do not let him know that they are starting to suspect that he has something to do with this. Instead, they just continue to conduct the interview. It would have taken a pretty massive blow for him to be knocked out cold for over 6 hours. Even a fraction of that time. And Julian only had this little tiny scar on his forehead. Baby, you should look like a Looney Tunes character if you got hit that hard. Another something that was very suspicious is the fact that there were not 2 cars involved in this, only Julian's car. And everything from the car to all of the tools used belonged to Julian, or had his DNA on it only. So what did this masked man do? Randomly set off on foot and decide he was going to carry out this plot today with no tools? He just trusted the fact that whoever he kidnapped was going to have everything he needed, a little knife, a little rope, and a shovel? Sounds highly unlikely, sir, but I digress. But before I digress, I mean, what are the odds that Julian really would have everything that he needed? Like, girl. Of course, at this point, investigators are completely convinced that Julian is involved in this mess, but they cannot figure out why. For what reason? What way could you possibly gain from this? What is the motive? That is a question that only he can answer for them. And so at this point, they decide not to waste any more time. They let him know that they suspect that he has something to do with it, and they want to know why. Like, sir, just tell us the truth. Cut the lies. When they tell Julian it's in his best interest to go ahead and just tell them the truth right here, right now, Julian folds like a lawn chair Coachella child and tells them everything. He is not just involved and a part of this plot. He is the plot, okay? He is the curator of the plot. He'd actually been planning all of this for quite some time now. He'd even gone out ahead of time to bury the supplies that he would need to carry out the act. Her hearing the digging while she's blindfolded is actually him. The 7 days that they had spent wandering and lost, he had not been lost at all. Miss Thing had a map and was very aware of where they were at all times. He was purposely taking them around in circles and keeping them within like the secluded areas so that they are not spotted by anyone. He needed to ensure that they would be alone long enough for him to carry out his mission, what he really had bought Carolyn there for. Because remember, I told you earlier he was riding in the car with a plan. See, Julian had grown tired of not having sex. Now, he was willing to wait till she turned 18 and they got married, but now Carolyn is playing with the dates, okay? She does not want to get married on her 18th birthday at 12 a.m. on the dot. And now desperate times call for desperate measures, at least in his mind. He literally traumatized this poor 17-year-old girl into believing that she was about to be assaulted and murdered by some crazy maniac. Spent 7 days in the woods purposely running her in circles, hoping that within that time he could coerce her into having sex with him. Each night when it would get really, really cold, like extremely cold, he tried to convince her that the only way that they would surely survive through these cold nights is for them to go ahead and have sex, for things to get real hot and heavy between them and keep them warm and alive. He'd purposely stash just one sleeping bag there so they would be forced to share it and be all extra, extra close. He had purposely taken off their clothes so that they'd be naked inside said sleeping bag, hoping that them being all naked and close together would sort of make her a little more willing. However, Carolyn took her faith very seriously, and so she was not that easily persuaded. So when the warmth thing didn't work, he tells her that they can just get married right there. Maybe they're about to meet their end. These may be their final days. And so it probably is just best that they go ahead and get married. They could just take their vows right there in the woods, which would then make them married in the eyes of God. Because like the license and the minister, baby, that's all for show and for the humans. They didn't need that. All they needed was themselves and the eyes of God. A couple of little vows. But unfortunately for Julian, Carolyn is still not willing. So on the 7th day, Julian got tired, okay? He said, well, look, girl, it's not looking like this is going to work. We might just need to wrap this up. We're getting low on food. We're getting low on water. I'm tired of being cold every night, and this obviously is not working. So let's just call it a wrap. In describing to the police what had truly taken place, he has no remorse at all. He does not feel bad about it at all. He doesn't appear to think it's strange or weird. He just casually tells them what happened as if it was not that big of a deal. Now, he is a creep, of course, and I'm sure the psychological damage done on this poor girl is extensive. However, I am glad that he didn't just kill her when it was over. Now, in addition to suffering mentally and emotionally, she did have some physical trauma. She suffers long-term injuries to her hands, to her wrists, and neck from being tied up like she was all those hours inside of the trunk of the car. Not to mention the severe sunburn, which was not like ouch, regular sunburn, didn't have sunscreen. No. 7 days wandering around in the heat like that, she was severely sunburned. Yes, my fingers look like turkey hot dogs. We are not about to address it any further than that. I'm not wearing nails right now for my own personal reasons. Mind your business. Look at my insecurities popping out. I'm sorry, girl. You ain't even say nothing. Julian is charged for kidnapping and coercion. He also is charged for his own staging of his kidnapping. Try to get him on theft, filing a false police report, girl lying to the police, just any and everything that they could get him charged for. And rightfully so. He deserves it all. Now, after his hearing, he is granted a bail, which he posts. But instead of sticking around to see how long he was about to get in jail, he decides to flee the country. Julian is actually German. His parents had just come to Australia when he was a young child. So he decided he was going to go back to his homeland. But he did not want to get caught trying to do so. And so he figured that he would need a clever way of fleeing the country. And you know what he comes up with? Child, he disguises himself as an Indian man, goes to the store, gets black dye, dyes his hair jet black. He also gets some of that fake tanner that actually works, girl, because I used it on. But that ain't what this is. This is authentic. He rubs that all over his body to make himself brown. He steals a valid passport from an Indian man, puts his little picture over it to try to make it look real. And it actually works with the Australian officials. He makes his way to India, but once he gets to India, oh, they're like, oh no, ma'am. This is very much fraud, okay? We are not letting you in. The Indian officials decide to return him to sender. At least that's what they were trying to do. Unfortunately, he couldn't take a flight straight back to Australia. He needed to go through Singapore first, and that is where he manages to escape. Julian goes on the run and eventually he is apprehended and returned to Australia. For his original crimes, he is sentenced to 7 years and 9 months in prison. And for him evading arrest and jumping ship, girl, trying to make it to India, doing all that fraud, they add an additional 6 months, which I felt was generous. But he doesn't think it's generous. He doesn't even think it's fair. He appeals the decision, loses his appeal, of course, because girl, please. And he has since served out his 8 years and has been released. I really hope this pink is about to be cute, because girl, on lips the size of these, things can get pretty crazy. So I tried to do a pink lip color, but what I find, I don't know, because I see girls with bigger lips than mine and it looks beautiful on them, but I don't know why it does not work for me. And I try to underline my lip. That does not help at all either. And this is stained. Child. I have so many pinks, purples, and bright color lipsticks, and I just can't make it work for me. I don't know why. Now, because he had received these convictions over in Australia, they decided to revoke his visa, okay? Send him back to his homeland once his sentence is up. And so as soon as he is released in 2016, they put him on a little one-way flight, free of charge, back to his little homeland. And who knows where he is today? If you know where he at, girl, you over in Germany, you didn't see him down in Walmart like I saw Monique, let me know. You know, a lot of couples watch my channel together. Shout out to the couples. But imagine that's your man and you didn't know about his past, girl, and you finding that out right now. All right, that concludes today's video and today's look. Let me know your thoughts on this case down below. I was kind of happy to do one where nobody died. Granted, I'm sure Carolyn suffered a lot, and I hope she has gotten some help, girl, because that's a lot to go through. Let me know what you think about it down below. Don't forget to like the video before you leave. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. What's up, Blue? What's up? Because I'm trying to do what I need to do to feed you, but you ain't allowing it. Our own team. Papa has not shown his face in these YouTube streets in so long. It's always Bella at my feet, so that's the one I usually pick up. Hiya, big guy. You're so handsome. Not you being jealous and demanding being picked up. Bella, your head is huge. Hey, mommy girl. We already like 2 days behind on the schedule, so this video is gonna be hella late already. And I'm gonna need for Bella and Blue to just leave me alone. I'm literally 8 minutes, 7 minutes and 55 seconds to be exact into filming, and I probably have a solid 32 seconds of usable footage. Now, a little background on the couple. Julian and, I almost call her Christina, girl, who is that? Their mission is to abolish Christianity at all. Okay, what? And neither were any of their, and none of their what, girl? In their individual. Girl, there's no T in individual. It's a D, baby, it's a D. Ooh, I'm tired, I'm ready to go to sleep. But just as she is considering doing so, she is a course, not the of course without the F. And now desperate times, really, Blue? The Indian officials, girl, what? I'm just trying to close out my video on both of my dogs are right here, all in my business. Hey! We be communicating. Let me finish the video. Give me like 30 seconds. Let me tell the people bye. Can I do that? You counting from 30? Okay. Bella counting. Girl, that was not 30 seconds. Be real. I haven't even taught you how to count, girl. That's my bad. Such a bad parent. All right, so is there something in my hair? It is. What the hell? Girl, I'm never gonna finish the video at this rate. Oh my God, it's concealer on black hair. Let's just put you in the bag, girl. All the big lipped girls, let me know how we supposed to wear bright colors on our lips. Like, y'all be looking cute, I be looking crazy.